Hi, this is Mark Ahern. I am the creative director and technical lead here at Universal Nothing, working on Persevere. In this video, I want to show you some of the inner workings of our narrative engine. Uh, I think it's best to first talk about the goal, and the goal is that effectively in strategy games, uh, characters are not persistent. You can't guarantee that you'll have the same character throughout the entire game because it's expected in strategy games that you can gain and lose people. So that means we can't write a story for a particular set of people. And if we did, then we would lose a lot of story along the way because if a person died, then their story would just end and we might not have enough story to fill in there. So the goal here is to be able to write these modular scripts, these modular stories that then we can slot or choose the right type of person for in such a way that it will always be consistent, coherent, and work emotionally so that characters in your stories don't act one way in one story or scene and another way in another scene. And the core of how we achieve that is that every character is made up of three or more traits, and mostly those traits are personality traits. So these are all the traits that we have in the game, and very importantly, each trait is a combination of what we call two poles, and those poles are in four axes. Okay, so we have action, belief, mood, and worldview. So in action, we've bold and cautious. Bold is action first, cautious is passive first, and so on. And so adventurous is cheerful and bold, and then playful is cheerful and cautious, and so on. So we select these three. Let me show you in game. So this is the game running, and this is just the best way I have to show you at the moment because this is our debug output for generated characters. Every time you play a session of the game, we are procedurally, randomly, but random with logic, generating these characters. So here we have Trinity. She's a she. She's dominant somber, which means that she has at least two traits with somber. So she's a loner and driven and opportunistic. And then how the system interacts with the narrative scripts is that we score that personality based on those traits. So she scores 4 as a loner. Doesn't that make sense? She's got loner as a trait. She also scores 4 as rebellious. No, she doesn't have rebellious, but these traits in combination give her a high score in a rebellious trait. She's determined. Again, not in her makeup, but the combination of probably driven and opportunistic makes her determined. And so, what this allows us to do is, have these very simple configurations for characters, just 3 or 4 traits, and to be able to derive a full personality from that makeup. And so, let me show you how that's used in scripts. So this is our scripting language. It's not ours. It's an open source scripting language called Yarn, which is designed for these kind of static branching narratives. So it allows you to do things like, if this is the case, then take this path in the narrative. If that's the case, take that part, or let the user make a choice for those things. But it doesn't do any kind of character insertion or any of that stuff. So that's what we've added to this. And so I don't expect, don't worry too much about the I'll try to talk this through in layman's terms, but essentially in this script, this is one of our crises where something bad happens. We have this opportunity for a character, for basically someone else in the area, one of the other crew members, to be able to help in this situation. So wherever you see focus here, focus is talking about the character that is having the crisis, and then we've defined this other person, this helper, as a potential person. Now, what it's doing here is it's going to get the ID of a person who who matches the trait support. And it doesn't mean that they have the trait; it means that they score well for it. So if we look here at the scores, if someone has a score in supportive, then they have a chance of being returned. And what we do is it's a weighted chance. So when we look for a person that is supportive in your crew, we're taking all those scores and we're doing a random weighted roll, meaning that you're more likely to return a character that has a high supportive score than a low supportive score. And then what happens in this script is this option gets added. If we have the helper, then the player has the opportunity to let that person help. And if that's the case, then we jump to this part of the script where that person does in fact help and decreases basically removes the negative outcome of the crisis. Because if the helper wasn't there, then you're going to have some other side effects, like you're going to lose fuel for your train. The person is going to end up disgruntled, which means that that's another temporary trait that will affect their narrative and their performance going forward. Now let's look at another bit. I made another version of this script where we choose anybody. So in this case, the helper can be anybody that's in the area, if there is anybody in the story with the person. So each time a story triggers, there can be multiple characters in that location, and we can pull them into the narrative. So in this case, the helper is anybody. But but down here, we can check if that person then is like those kind of things. So if this person is, matches a support profile, then we'll play out this support text. If they match an opportunistic profile, then they'll play opportunistic text, and so on. So these are just two ways, and there's more depth to this, but this is kind of the core of how the system works. So let's try these very quickly. I will say this is all procedurally generated, so I can't tell the outcomes of these up front, but if I open my debug menu here, and we can try the variant first. So this is where it's going to see if there's a supportive person in play. Now, we only have two options, which means that none of these people match a supportive. So if I hover over them, we can see this is a loner. He's strategic and opportunistic. He's haunted and imaginative. So none of these score above 0 for a supportive role. So we could try this once more. I'm not going to keep doing this, but maybe we'll get lucky on our second chance and we'll see somebody. So let's press. Yeah, here we go. So now Nix, if I go to Nix here, we can see that Nix, he hasn't got supportive directly, but his profile, his profile opportunistic, playful, organized means that he scores well on supportive. So now if we select Nix, Nix then helps the person, and thanks to his support, Trinity comes through the experience no worse off. And I'll just show you, let's play that one more time, and this time we will try to talk them through it. So in this case, nothing terrible bad happened, but we pissed off Trinity. They will now be disgruntled for one day, and then that disgruntled trait could feed into, if something else happens in one day, the disgruntled could be part of that experience. So it creates this consistency and this kind of persistence for the player, so that they can see that previous choices and events affect future narrative. And let's look at the other one. This is the one where it selects anybody. So Tepes in this case was chosen. This is Tepes here. So he's hard-boiled, opportunistic, and carefree. So if we have him help, then he gets because he scored, he has opportunistic and he scores high on that, he actually takes the opportunistic path. So he takes charge of the situation and ends up pissing off, actually doesn't piss off Trinity. Trinity from this basically gains separation anxiety for 7 days. Separation anxiety is they don't like to work alone. So, they want someone there with them all the time. And so for 7 days, that would be the condition. That actually affects gameplay as well. So if you assign them to a location, their stress will be higher if you don't assign someone else with them while they have this trauma trait. So these purple traits are called traumas. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, and take care.